The morning I found dead fish floating belly up in my lake, I had no idea I was about to take down an entire HOA board and cost them $500,000. Let me paint you a picture. I'm Rex Crawford. Spent 30 years busting my ass as a machinist, saving every penny for 15 acres of retirement paradise. Crystal clear, spring-fed lake, perfect for fishing away from the world's noise. Then I wake up to what looks like a crime scene. Dozens of bass and bluegill floating belly up like they just gave up on life. The chemical stench hit me like a slap, sharp, toxic, the kind that makes you gag and stumble backward. An oily rainbow slick spread across water, so clear you used to see bottom at 10, for my trail camera caught everything. HOA maintenance truck dumping barrels at 3 a.m. By the time I was done, their board president was in federal prison, and I had an entire community begging for forgiveness. But that's getting ahead of myself. What would you do if you caught your HOA poisoning your property? Where are you watching from? I want to see how far this story travels. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. After 30 years running a lathe at Midwest Manufacturing, my hands were shot, my back was screaming, and my 401k finally had enough zeros to make me smile. I wasn't looking for trouble. Just wanted 15 acres where nobody could tell me what to do. Found this perfect slice of heaven 40 minutes outside town. Natural spring-fed lake, dense woods, and enough space to build a modest cabin with my own two hands. The realtor mentioned it bordered some fancy HOA community called Willowbrook Estates. But hell, their McMansions were 200 yards away. What'd go wrong? Famous last words, right? Everything was perfect for exactly 18 months. I'd wake up to loons calling across water, so still it looked like black glass. The smell of pine sap mixed with that clean mineral scent of spring water. My cabin wasn't much. 1,200 square feet of honest lumber and sweat equity, but every board was level. Every joint was tight, and it was mine. Then I met Constance Fitzgerald. Picture your worst nightmare of suburban royalty. Then add a law degree and enough entitlement to power a small city. 52-year-old real estate attorney's wife drives a white BMW that's always spotless, like she has servants with detailing brushes. Always dressed in tennis whites or designer athleisure that probably costs more than my truck payment. She showed up at my door on a Tuesday morning, clicking across my gravel driveway in heels that had no business being within a mile of actual dirt. Mr. Crawford, I'm Constance Fitzgerald, HOA board president. Her voice had that practiced tone rich people use when they're explaining why you don't belong. We need to discuss your situation. I wiped sawdust off my hands, been building new kitchen cabinets, and stepped on my porch. Ma'am, this is an HOA property. Technically, no. She glanced at her clipboard like it contained state secrets. But your structures are visible from our community. Our residents invested in a certain lifestyle. And frankly, she paused, studying my work clothes with the kind of look you'd give roadkill. This area is meant for people of certain standards. The way she said certain standards while looking me up and down made my jaw clench. 30 years of honest work. And this woman's talking to me like I crawled out of a swamp. Lady, everything's built to code. County inspector, I'm sure you did your best with your background. Another pause, another look. Perhaps you consider relocating somewhere more suitable. After she left, I should have known I was in for a war, but I figured she'd made her point and would buzz off to terrorize someone else. Wrong again. First came the anonymous complaints. Fire hazard, unsightly structures, health code violations. I'd lose a day each time some county inspector showed up, found nothing wrong, and left shaking his head. The crunch of their tires on my gravel became my new least favorite sound. Then Constance escalated. HOA landscaping crews started parking equipment right on my property line. Diesel trucks idling at dawn, exhaust fumes mixing with morning mist off the lake. The foreman would smile and wave like we were old friends while turning my sunrise coffee into a diesel breakfast. The real gut punch came when they accidentally sprayed herbicide on my vegetable garden. 20 years growing tomatoes in that spot. Watch them blacken and curl like they've been torched. The acrid chemical smell lingering for days. Wind must have carried it. The supervisor shrugged. These things happen. Sure. Wind that blows in perfect rectangles matching my garden boundaries. Must be that new GPS-guided weather system. That's when I started documenting everything. Trail camera pointed at the lake. Logbook of every HOA vehicle. Photos time-stamped and filed. 30 years in manufacturing teaches you that when things start failing systematically, somebody's sabotaging the system. Good thing I was watching, because what Constance did next turned my quiet retirement into a federal crime scene. 3 weeks later, my trail camera caught something that made my blood boil. 2:30 in the morning, clear as day, under infrared. HOA maintenance truck backing up to my lake. 2 guys in coveralls hauling industrial barrels to the water's edge, dumping contents that glowed white-hot on camera, then speeding off like they just robbed a bank. By sunrise, 47 fish were floating belly up. Bass, bluegill, even the old catfish I'd been trying to catch for 2 years. The water looked like someone had poured motor oil across the surface, and the smell, Christ, that chemical stench burned your throat from 50 yards away. My boots squelched in the muddy shoreline as I collected samples, trying not to gag. I saved that footage to 3 different drives, printed screenshots, and marched straight to the monthly HOA meeting that Thursday night. Willowbrook Community Center smelled like fresh carpet and disappointment. The room was packed with residents who looked like they'd stepped out of a country club catalog. Constance sat at the head table in a cream-colored blazer, running the meeting like she was chairing the Supreme Court. "Mr. Crawford," she announced when I stood up during open comments, "you're not a resident. This meeting is for Willowbrook homeowners only." "Well, Constance, since your people poisoned my lake, I figure that makes it my business." I held up my printouts, got all on camera. The room went dead quiet. You could hear the air conditioning humming and someone's nervous throat clearing in the back row. Here's where Constance showed her true colors. Instead of looking shocked or apologetic, she leaned back in her chair with this smug little smile that made my fists clench. "That's a very serious accusation, Mr. Crawford. Are you suggesting our maintenance staff would deliberately contaminate your property?" She paused for effect, then delivered the gut punch. "Because that sounds like insurance fraud to me." "Insurance fraud?" "Oh, yes." She shuffled through some papers like she'd been expecting this conversation for weeks. "I have witness statement from 3 residents who saw you dumping containers near the lake last week. Isn't it convenient that you suddenly have a contamination problem right after your property taxes went up?" The room started buzzing with whispers. I felt heat creeping up my neck as Constance produced typed statements claiming I'd been seen dumping chemicals myself. 3 signatures, 3 lies, all neat and tidy on HOA letterhead. This woman had prepared for my accusation by fabricating counter-evidence. The sheer balls of it left me speechless for about 10 seconds. Furthermore, Constance continued, savoring her moment. "Given your hostile behavior and these fraudulent claims, the board votes to ban you from future meetings as a disruptive non-resident. All in favor?" 5 hands shot up immediately like they'd rehearsed this little performance. But here's the thing about being a machinist for 30 years. You learn to think 3 moves ahead while everyone else is still figuring out move 1. While Constance was orchestrating her kangaroo court, I was quietly photographing those witness statements with my phone. Amazing how much people leave lying around when they think they've won. After the meeting, I lingered in the parking lot until most residents had left, breathing in the cool night air and planning my next move. Constance always parked closest to the building. God forbid she walk an extra 20 feet in those designer heels. While she was inside, probably celebrating her victory with the remaining board members, I slipped back into the community center through the side door that someone had propped open for loading supplies. The conference room was empty, chairs stacked against the walls, but Constance had left her precious file folder on the table. Inside, copies of HOA waste disposal contracts, vendor agreements, and jackpot invoices showing they'd been illegally dumping cleaning solvents for 6 months to save disposal fees. Apparently, saving a few $1,000s was worth risking federal environmental violations. I photographed everything with my phone, hand steady despite my racing heart, put the folder back exactly where I found it, and walked out whistling an old Merle Haggard tune. Next morning, I drove to the county environmental lab with water samples in mason jars and my camera footage on a flash drive. Cost me $400 out of pocket, but the results were worth every penny. Methylene chloride and trichloroethylene in concentrations that could drop a grizzly bear. Then I did something Constance never expected from a simple machinist. I'd read somewhere that EPA complaints were free to file online, and they had to investigate within 30 days if the contamination affected waterways. Since my spring-fed lake connected to protected wetlands downstream, this was about to become Uncle Sam's problem. The complaint form took 20 minutes to fill out. I attached my photos, lab results, and camera footage, hit submit, and got an automatic confirmation with case number. 3 days later, my phone rang. Mr. Crawford, this is Agent Torres with the EPA Criminal Investigation Division. We need to talk. Agent Torres turned out to be a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who'd been investigating environmental crimes longer than I'd been fishing. We met at a diner outside town where the coffee tasted like motor oil and the vinyl booth had seen better decades. She spread my photos across the sticky table like she was dealing cards in a high-stakes poker game. Mr. Crawford, what you've documented here constitutes multiple felony violations of the Clean Water Act. We're talking $50,000 per day per violation. She tapped one of my infrared photos with a chipped fingernail. This isn't some HOA dispute anymore. This is federal environmental crime. I was still processing that bombshell when Constance launched her counterattack. A thick envelope arrived in my mailbox 3 days later. Certified mail from Fitzgerald and Associates, attorney at law. The paper was so expensive, it practically crinkled with arrogance. Inside was a cease and desist letter demanding $50,000 for defamation and intentional interference with business relationships. The legal language was dense enough to choke a Supreme Court justice, but the message was crystal clear. Shut up or pay up. That same week, Constance filed for a restraining order, claiming I'd threatened violence at the HOA meeting. According to her sworn statement, I made aggressive gestures and used intimidating language that made board members fear for their safety. Complete fabrication, but realistic enough that I had to take a day off to appear in court and explain to a skeptical judge why I wasn't actually a dangerous lunatic.